Okay, hi guys, and thanks for tuning in. Right, so we'll crack on. You know why we're here. We're going to go through the tuning calculator. Quite a few people have asked me about it. Not quite sure how certain things are working. I've also had people try it and not get on with it and give me some reasons as to why it's not very good. But in actual fact, some of the things that they're asking or questioning are actually very manageable in the calculator. I'll give you some examples as we're going along. But, okay, so the idea here then. First of all, you need to get your web browser open. If you're going to follow along with me, then that'll be good. So what I've got two setups for what you're looking at here. So we've got the main web browser open, and the first place we need to do is get over to the tuning calculator. So we need to go to www.dltuning.co.uk/FM7 it's already come up, look, tune it yourself. So there we go, so that's the web address we need to go to. So we'll click on that, and that will take you over to the calculator page. There we go. Let me just make sure, I just want to double check that you're seeing what I'm seeing. Yeah, it looks like you are. Okay, right, so here we go. Before I go down to the calculator, which is just below this, there's this big red box here which says before using this calculator. This bit is skimmed over so many times, but I'm going to go through this in reasonable detail on this stream, so I'm not in any rush to get this like blitz through. We'll take our time and we'll tune the car properly. So before using the calculator, just remember the build of the car is as important, if not more important, than the tune itself. It's absolutely more important than the tune itself. You can't polish a turd, can you? So if the build is shit, then you're not going to be able to tune it very well. Bear that in mind when you're tuning lower, sort of lower class cars that are going to need certain upgrades. Even when you're upgrading them to the max, your lower class cars aren't going to perform as well as your quicker class cars with better chassis and all that sort of nonsense. But there we go. So adjustable race suspension upgrades are required for springs and dampers, and both front and back anti-roll bars. All of these race spec upgrades are going to be needed. Race aero upgrades are optional. It is assumed that they are all installed though before carrying on. It's not important that you do aero, we can use that or not use it, but if you're going to make any tuning adjustments to suspension, then obviously you've got to have the race upgrades installed, and the anti-roll bar is really important. Tune itself has been written in such a way that you must be prepared to dedicate time to the tuning process. The more time you dedicate, the more success you will have. Tuning guides can take up to an hour, although base tunes are calculated within minutes. Those who can quickly identify handling problems will get quicker results. If you're uncertain about tuning principles, it's highly recommended that you read our tuning guide. That has recently been updated. If you don't know how to get to it, if you just click back on this page, this will just take you back to the main page where we've got the Forza Motorsport 7 selections, and we've got a new tuning guide right here. If you click on this, there we go, tuning in a nutshell. It is new. It took me a little time to write it, but there's a whole heap load of stuff here on everything. So having a good understanding of what tuning actually, or what you're tuning and why you're tuning it will really help. There's stacks on here, all the way down through to differentials. There's even a flowchart at the bottom, which will help you troubleshoot stuff. Now this flowchart's going to look really familiar in a second because it's incorporated into the calculator. So we'll go back to the top, go back, find our way back to the tune it yourself calculator, and here we are back on here. Right, instructions explaining how to use the calculator are written below the calculator. Please don't miss this out. Here's the calculator itself, but if we go below it, we've got a video tutorial that you can watch, which will go through pretty much what I'm going to do in a lot less detail. Today we're going to actually get down to business with this thing. And then we've got a user guide. It's pretty straightforward. Create a bass tune, blah 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 blah. We'll go through it. Begin to tune it yourself. Oh, it's clever, isn't it? And there we go. Main page controls and so on. I'll go through that, and tuning specific areas is a flowchart which hopefully looks familiar. What we mentioned just a second ago, that is also going to be spoken about, and that's that tailored just for you. The idea with tuning it yourself, right, is creating a bass tune is not even close to touching the potential of the calculator. There are so many calculators out there that offer bass tunes. And some of them will be very comparable with others, and some of them won't be. Some of them will be leagues away, and you'll be like, okay, so why is this tune better than that tune, or whatever? And then that leads you to the point of, well, hang on a minute, you drive differently to me, so does a tune that's good for you, necessarily mean I can set a quick lap time in it? And the answer is probably not. Which is why we're tuning it ourselves. We're going to tune this car, like, if I feel understeer, that might be because of the way I'm driving it. If I feel oversteer, that might be because of the way I'm driving it. Someone else might not get those tendencies for vehicle handling to change as they're driving, because they might just be on the gas or on the brakes at a different time to me. So they're going to need a car set up differently, but that's okay. We can adjust the results. So it's more like a tool to help you to tune the car. Don't think about this thing as a calculator as such. You need to control this thing and manipulate the results to your specifications. So that's all of that chatted about, and there we go. So underneath, we'll try and just get that pretty much on point, and I'll leave it there as we're going. In fact, no, I probably won't, because I'm going to be scrolling underneath to read some of this user guide stuff. Let's do it properly. So, enter required vehicle information. There's loads of calculators out there which say, oh, we need to know your tyre widths and your wheel dimensions and a whole heap load of information. And then some people query tune it yourself, because they say, well, you only need a couple of pieces of information, so therefore the results must be shocking. How can you possibly tune a car with only such a small amount of information? Well, the whole point of tuning a car is to basically balance it. If it's balanced for you, then it will work. So really all we need, all I've decided to use, is the vehicle weight and how that weight is distributed. Then we can manipulate the balance of the car. If I want, if I've got more weight on the rear, then my rear wheels are going to heat up quicker and all of this sort of stuff, then okay, fine. But at the end of the day, if we can manipulate the balance, then we can get the car doing what we want it to do. So here we go. The only figures that you'll need to source from the game are vehicle weight and percentage front. Enter these figures into the relevant boxes. So let's do it. The car that we're going to be using today is the cover car. I believe this was the cover car, right? I'm not just making that up. So I went for this because I remember on the demo this was an absolute pig of a car to control. It was absolutely awful. It got slated completely. So I don't even think I've driven it since, and I wanted to see if I could do something with it. I didn't want to use just like an MX-5 or something that's, or an M3 or something that's pretty well balanced anyway. I wanted to use something a little bit different. So this is the car that we've got, or that I'm opting to use, so feel free to go along and buy the same one. I need to know a little bit about this car. Let's go to my garage and just see this here. So I bought, did I buy this? Just is it completely stock? I think it was. I think it was. Let me just go to the upgrades. Maybe I added something. Was it? Okay, let's go to the setup manager and reset the default upgrades. Let's just do that first straight away and just kill everything back to 0. Then I'm going to check what's installed. So I really don't care about the engine upgrades here. That's not the point of this. I'm not worried about weight reduction either. Diff I might leave out as well. In fact, let's go for the tuning. Let's see what can be adjusted via the tuning page first. What have we got access to? So tyres, gearing, I'll leave that as well because the calculator is a suspension calculator. There is no gearing covered, and there are no plans to introduce a gearing calculator at the moment, just because I don't have time. That doesn't mean I won't do something in future, but just so you know, don't get carried away. There's no gearing going on with this. But it looks like race suspension is installed and anti-roll bars. That's all good. All adjustable. Aero will leave off as well. The brakes are in. The diff is out. Okay, so we'll do we put the diff in? No, let's leave that as well. We're going to leave differential. That's another thing the calculator doesn't do. So that's actually quite handy. The aero the calculator will cover, but the diff settings it doesn't. I don't know if you can see this actually on the stream. It's only a little. Well, you can only see it on this little screen here. I will be switching back so you can see it on a much larger screen, but just for the moment we're on this one. So yeah, diff I'm going to leave. The reason that the calculator doesn't calculate the diff is because it's just you could have exactly the same vehicle setup essentially with regards to weight and tyres and all of this nonsense, but just change the power. And the diff settings need to be adjusted, but I don't really want to focus on the power or anything like that. I'm focusing purely on the suspension side of things, so we'll leave that as well. The brakes I'll leave in there. I've said we'll concentrate on suspension, but adjusting brakes for corner entry and corner entry will be good. And like I said, aero will leave as well, just so there's nothing masking what we're doing. So the car is good as stock. So you should have a vehicle with sport tyres on it, tyre widths at 325 on the rear and 265s on the front. Everything's completely stock. Okay, good. Right, now then, the other thing we've got to decide what we're doing is where are we tuning this car for, what kind of track. Well, it's pretty much like a race car, sports car, isn't it? So we'll put it on a flat circuit. Whenever I'm tuning for flat circuits, I tend to go to Silverstone. So that's where we'll head. So let's get over there, let's get the car on the track. We'll use the full one, the Grand Prix circuit. So we've got a bit of everything. I'm not worried too much about what the lap count is. All the driver tyres need to be set to, well, I say 0, that doesn't really matter really because we're going to go into the test drive thing. So that's the car and track. Let's go to the race. And then just quickly bring ourselves back over to the information that we need to put in. So I need a vehicle weight and a percentage front, which I should be able to find out from this menu just here, and then we're going to enter them into the calculator. Oh, didn't want that one. So there we go, I won't actually make any upgrades here. We've got a weight of 3197 pounds. Oh, just so you know, if you're using metric, you can flip that over and you've got kilograms will come up. If you're going to change the units, you must do it before you enter any information. You have to change the units at the start. If you start by entering the weight in pounds, let's just hypothesize with 2,000 pounds, and then change it over to metric, it thinks it's 2,000 kilos. It's not going to make the adjustment. So make sure you select the unit first. And the amount that we're putting in is £3197 with a percentage distribution of 42%. There we go. Right, so we've got some figures popped up, which is excellent. That's exactly what we want to see. So I'm going to come out of this. And I tell you what, let's just for the sake of the this, I'm going to go into test drive first. Let's just do a couple of laps. I want an honest comparison as to. Let me just swap the screens around so you can see it the other way. Here we go. I want an honest comparison as to whether or not this is going to be any better from stock. So let's give it a few laps. Oh, okay. Loads of understeer. Absolutely stacks of understeer. It might just be that the tyres need to warm up a little bit. It feels like there's a lot of understeer going on. And the brakes could probably do with firming up a touch. Okay, now I'll just smash this around for a couple of laps, just to see if the understeer disappears, but it's really noticeable. Okay, you shouldn't really be slowing down that much for that corner. That's really quite bad. So on the brakes, it's not turning, okay, right, it's really quite bad. There's a lot of understeer happening. I'm not even sure if I want to carry on with that. So we know it's not all that decent where it is. Okay, right. So we'll go back to the results here. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is chuck all of these in. I'm not going to change the tyre pressure settings just yet. I'm just going to copy all the information across. So we've got camber at front -2. Do I need to switch this over? Sorry, there's probably a chance that I'm going to keep forgetting to do this. I'll try and remember. So here we go. We've got camber set at -2 on the front and -1.6 at the back. Toe settings default to 0. That will always be the case. I've deliberately made the calculator do that. It will always be the case that they go to 0 because the toe adjustments cause tyre scrubbing. Pretty bad. Toe basically means that the wheels aren't rotating directly in the direction of travel. They're at a slight angle, so they scrub essentially the inside and the outside of the tyre are trying to move at different speeds, which slows the car down a little bit. It does have massive improvements in cornering, but it's not very good for straight line acceleration. So I'm going to leave those at 0, and the front caster I've also got defaulting at 6 degrees, so those things don't change. The anti-roll bars, now then, if you look at the calculator, it's asking for front anti-roll bar. The reason it's asking for the front anti-roll bar is because of the percentage front that we've entered into this box right here. If the vehicle was distributed, or the weight was distributed differently, let's just change this to 52 just for the hell of it. You'll notice that it asks for the rear anti-roll bar stiffness. You must pay attention. That figure does, or that requirement does change. Sometimes it's going to ask for the rear anti-roll bar, sometimes it's going to ask for the front, but we'll put it back. It was on 42, I think. So the front anti-roll bar, if you don't know where to set them, if you've got no idea as a starting point, because this bit's for you to decide, then I would say either go with a setup that you're used to, or if you don't know what to type in, then just type in the one that says in the game 12.44. It reads. So you could just type that one in, and it will give a suggestion then for the rear anti-roll bar. It will come up straight away, and it's saying 9.01. Now I'm going to also be honest. I think these anti-roll bar stiffnesses are low. I don't normally run anti-roll bars that soft, but that is an option for you. Now, for me, I want that a little bit stiffer, so I'm going to crank that front up to about 20. Nah, let's go a bit higher still. Let's go up to about 30. The reason I want my anti-roll bar quite high is because I don't want the car to be leaning over too much. We're tuning for a flat track. Inside and outside wheels don't need much independent movement when you're going around corners. We just want the car to stay really, really flat. On bumpy tracks, you need some independent movement from the left and right hand wheel. So basically anti-roll bars stop that happening. They cause inside and outside wheels to mimic each other. So when you're going around a left hand corner and the car leans over to the right hand side, the right hand wheels like squash up into the arches. That causes the car to lean over a bit, but if you've got that anti-roll bar installed and it's nice and stiff, then as much as the right wheels will push up into the arches, the anti-roll bar will cause the left wheels to push up into the arches as well, and that keeps the car flat. That's great for flat tracks and naff for bumpy tracks. But we're doing a flat track, so we're going to go reasonably high with that. So I'm setting the fronts at 30, that's my choice. And with the aero adjustments, there's no aero installed on the car. I don't plan on putting any on for this build or for this video, but I could put 100 in as my pounds if that's what it would come up with. You can see now it has arrived. It says 100 for the front and 138 for the rear. Now these figures are calculated to keep the car balanced, but I don't have that in there, so it's cool to just leave it at 0 or blank. It makes no odds how you have it. So that's where I'm at the moment. I'm going to change this now to 30, which is where I wanted it. It doesn't matter if we're not exact. I'm sure 30.04 will be fine. And the rear anti-roll bar suggestion is 21.72. So let's chuck that in. We'll go 6.9, that's close enough. Okay, so moving along to springs, we've got front spring stiffness of 654, which isn't actually all that far off of what it defaults at, and the back is way out at 903.7. Now this is going to encourage a shitload of oversteer having such stiff rear springs, but we already know the car suffers from incredible understeer in its default setup, so fair enough. Hopefully that'll help. Grip is produced by a low centre of gravity, pure and simple. That's something that you need to try and remember. So the lower you can get the car, the better it's going to handle. Again, a low setup is not much good for bumpy tracks, but for a glass smooth track, hopefully that should be alright to crank all the way down, or maybe sort of 1 or 2 clicks off the bottom. We'll leave it all the way down for the moment, and we'll check it when we're testing. Okay, so over to damping. Let's have a look at what these are set at. So it's saying 6.8 for the front, stiffening these up a little bit, and 9.4 for the rear. Those are the rebound settings. And then the bump 4.5 on the front and 6.3 on the rear. So far not too much difficulties with this. Brake balance, again, this is for you to determine. It can't be calculated because it's different for each person. Just so you know, if you don't like, or if you're having to press the pedal too hard, then just up the pressure so you don't have to press it so hard, and vice versa. That's kind of a preference thing. Although the brake balance is important. If you're basically going into a corner and you're not turning enough, you're getting understeer under brakes, then you've got too much braking pressure up front, just send the braking pressure rearward a couple of clicks. If it's rotating too much on the brakes, just send it forward a couple of clicks. That's basically just how the braking balance works. We'll leave it at 50 for the moment, although it didn't want to turn, did it? Let's knock it down a bit. Let's put it at 45. It really didn't want to turn under those brakes, so I'll leave it there. I also like my pressure a little bit stiffer, so I don't know how you guys like to run. I'll run mine at about 145. So there we have it. Those are my figures. They should match exactly what the calculator spat out. I'm not going to do the tyre pressures just yet because there's a process for it. But there we go. So alignment, anti-roll bars, springs, dampers, downforce hasn't been done, brakes we've made adjustments to, and the differential's not in there either. So let's apply that setup and we'll get back onto the track. So just switch that back across, pop this mouse back down here and see how that helps. Okay, well, all joking aside, straight away that's definitely turning in. Let's give it a lap or so. What we want to try and start doing here is building up some lap times and then seeing if the tuning is helping us get a little bit quicker or not. Still didn't quite want to turn. It felt like it was coming in, but it didn't go to the amount I was hoping. It's still suffering a bit. This could be me. Okay, so one thing we need to start assessing early on is, are the tyres at a good pressure? If you've read the bit on tyres, then you'll know what we're aiming for. We're looking for about, here we go, this is not a great start. So the pressure's here. If you press up or down on your D-pad, down seems to be working, that will bring up the telemetry. Tab across using your left or right buttons on your D-pad until you find tyres miscellaneous, and then we're looking at pressures. You need to get those. They're about like 35-ish at the moment, where they're not climbing too much more, so we're pretty much at race temperature. We need to try and get those temperatures around 32 and a half. I tend to aim for when they're at race temperatures. So this is just to help with the size of the contact patch. Is that my previous lap chasing me there? Oh, there we go. So let's just pause that, go down to tune setup and make adjustments to the tyre pressures. So we're at 34 and a half. It's 35. So we'll take 2, might not quite be enough. Let's take them down to 28. Just double check these. I'm not too worried about lap times at the moment, just keeping an eye on those tyre pressures, just want them to drop right off. I don't know what else I'm going to do. Just to make this a little bit easier, I'm going to turn the braking line on. Oh, I can't seem to do that. I've got an assistant. Okay, let's just come out and test drive. It looks like I've got a mod turned on or something. Because it's something I don't tend to use, they're obviously oh, there we go. Right, so how do we just oh, there we go. Right, so they've gone. Let's go back to test drive. I'm trying to keep my eye out for so many things here, and talking to you guys. It's just going to be easier if I just turn the braking line on, and then I've got less to be concerned about while we're going. So let's just turn that on. Oh, you prat! I was looking at the wrong fucking thing anyway, wasn't I? Okay, so keeping an eye on tyre pressures, remember that's all we're doing at the moment. I'll tell you what, knocking that braking balance rear wheel has definitely helped on the brakes. Okay, so front's at 32.4. I'm going to creep up just a little bit, there we go. I mean, we're pretty much there with that. 32 and a half. I'm not going to be arguing over a tenth of a PSI. Right, so there we go. So for me, tyre pressure's done. The rest of the car's not handling too bad as it's warming up. The next thing I'll be looking at is spring stiffnesses. Now I know the calculator's giving us an idea of the spring stiffness. Excuse me, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the right stiffness for the car, right? Or the ride height. Because don't forget, our spring stiffnesses are going to determine, or are going to be determined a lot by the ride height. If we're running really, really low, we can't go too soft. So going back into this, the next tab I'm going to go across to is the springs. Here we go. So we've got springs going on here. Now you need to keep an eye out on these. At no point do you want the car to bottom out. Bottoming out is not when the bottom of the car hits the track. It's when a spring is fully compressed. You really don't want this to happen. Now I'm deliberately going to hit some curves here just to see if the springs bottom out at all. Anytime the numbers on these springs hit 1.00, they're at maximum compression. That's what we don't ever want to see. Hit a 99 there on the front left, 97 on the front right as we went around that corner. That's telling me already that we're really close to where we want to be. Even on those rear ones, we're hitting 97s, 98s, but I've not seen a 1.0 yet. So, on that assumption, the front and rear springs that it's spat out for us on the default or on the base tune are actually pretty damn good, with the car's ride height set as low as it is. Yeah, even over there, nothing bottoming out, or I didn't see it. I suppose the beauty is I can watch this back. Deliberately cutting across there again, nothing much at all. Okay, so this is alright. Spring stiffnesses, I'm happy with. Okay, so ride height is low, good. Spring stiffness just happens to be pretty much in the right place, and we've got tyre pressures hitting 32.5 psi roughly when they're up to race temperatures. So far so good. Now then, before we start tuning or using these sliders here, there's something else that we need to think about, and that's the damping. So the springs control how far or the spring stiffness or spring rates control how far the spring compresses, and the dampers control how quickly the springs dissipate energy. It's probably a good way of putting it out there. If you take the damper out, the spring will just bounce up and down and bounce down the track, and the vehicle will never settle. In fact, what we could do is I can show you this in action. So we know how the car's driving in at the moment. You can see you can see it's pretty firm as it's driving down the track. That's because of the damper settings. Now then, this brings us over to a couple of these fine tuning options. So here we've got overall spring stiffness. Now let's just hypothetically say that my spring stiffness wasn't as ideal as it was. If I wasn't hitting the 0.99, 0.98 on the spring movement. If that was, let me show you. I'll knock this down 30% on the overall spring stiffness, and you can see the figures here have adjusted. If I go back to spring stiffness, I appreciate that I'm jumping around a little bit here, but I'm going to try and squeeze everything in that the calculator does. So if I drop this now down, I've taken 30% off my front and rear springs. Excuse me. Right, so pretty much there, 458.1 and 632.7. I hope I haven't, I don't know if you can see that. Let me just bring it back across. So here, here is where I've made the adjustments. So I've dropped that down. Softer, I can move these, you can see these figures changing. Drop it down to 30%. That's what they are, 458.1, 632.6. So, I'm just adjusting how my laptop looks so I don't forget to keep switching that screen over. So if I make these adjustments now, I'm just going to chuck them on there and then go back. Let's just hypothetically say that the springs have come out like that. If I start hitting bumps and stuff now, keep an eye on the spring stiffness. We might be able to encourage some bottoming out of the car or of the springs, although it didn't seem to be working too much there. There we go, look at that, front left is at 1, solid all the way down there. It makes it impossible to turn. You've gone from basically a spring with some sort of level of movement to an infinitely stiff spring. As soon as that hits 1, it's like taking the spring out altogether. That's what you want to avoid. It makes the car impossible to control. It really does. Sudden loss of grip. It's impossible to deal with. So you want to make sure that your spring stiffness is high enough to prevent that from happening. It was doing that fine when. Let's go back. It was doing that fine when these were set to 0. So we'll just put them back. So importance of spring stiffness being high enough, just high enough. This is what you want to go for. You don't want it any stiffer than it needs to be. As much spring travel as possible, just to keep the car off the ground when it's at its lowest ride height relative to the track. So we've got this car slammed, so we can't have the springs too soft, and there we go, that's what happens. So let's put these back. No, 3.7 and 454.4. Okay, there we go, so they're back. Now then, the dampers, like I said, control how quickly the springs dissipate energy, so they'll stabilise much faster. You don't want the car bouncing down the track. When you've got a stiff spring set up, the chances are it's because you're on a flat surface and you don't need much spring movement. It's also pretty fair to assume that the rebound stiffness and the bump stiffness need to be matching the spring rates. So if you've got a, let me just flip this back across. If you've got a damper, an overall spring stiffness of 0, an overall damper stiffness of 0 is normally pretty comparable as well. That doesn't always mean it's going to be the case. Sometimes when you're using vehicles which are really, really light, this was a comment that was brought up on my YouTube channel just about a week, maybe a couple of weeks ago. This guy's complaining, saying, "Oh yeah, it's all right. It's an okay calculator, but it needs an update because the overall damper stiffness on a Lotus 211, I think he was using something really, really light. The overall dampness is coming in really, really light, like in the 3s. So if I just move this cursor across and just start lowering the overall damper stiffness, bear that in mind. So the front and rear rebound and bump settings are all changing in an exact ratio, so the overall balance of the car will not change when you adjust these, but the overall amount will change. Balance doesn't get affected. So if you've already got a car handy and you think, oh yeah, it's all right, but I just want the springs or the shocks, dampers, whatever, to be a little bit stiffer, then you can up the stiffness of the shocks without upsetting the balance of the car. So he was saying that these figures are coming out, oh, they were low, like 3-point stuff, 2-point stuff, it's just not enough, you're not really accounted for this. Well, I have accounted for it, because you can amend it. There we go. So with your overall damper stiffness at 0, this brings us up 6.8, 9.4, 4.5 and 6.3. Now, I normally prefer a slightly stiffer setup with regards to the shock as well. So personal preference, I'm gonna nudge that up just a touch, maybe 20%. I like to see at least one of the figures in the 10, 11 range, especially on these flat, smooth surfaces. So by upping that to 20%, I've got my rear rebound's gone into the 11, so I'm gonna leave it there. I won't go any stiffer. So let's copy the rest across as well. So we're gonna go 8.1, 11.2, 5.5, and 7.5. So those figures are now crossing into the game. Let's click on this. Notice I'm not mucking around too much with the balance of the car. This is just suspension. Check that offset out. Did you see that? It's like that was mad. The front left was really high there. Okay, so this is just firming everything up with the ride. It's actually becoming easier to control. It still almost feels like there's a traction control of sorts on the back. That might just be the differential, not wanting the car to rotate. But it's already handling a lot better. So I'll just minimise the on-screen details there for the telemetry, and I'm just gonna run a lap or two. I've only done 3 laps anyway. Lots of adjustments happening, not really getting a feel for it. So let's get a few laps done. Going over those bumps, the springs are soaking the curbs up nice. This car's actually alright. I remember it being shit, absolutely shit in the demo. Whoa. Okay, so was that like a caught the grass? or was that too much pressure on the brakes? So if those wheels are locking up like that, I might just be applying too much pressure. I can adjust that by knocking some pressure off on the brakes, which I'm going to do now. We are tuning after all. Let's go 140, it might be enough. It's only looking up just at, excuse me, just at the last. So, definitely noticing the back end coming out at certain points. Don't forget the point of this whole thing, we don't want the car to be handling brake. We want the calculator to make the car handle brake. So it could also be turning a little bit more under the brake. The brakes didn't lock up, so that's good. Okay, so we're at 210.568 on the lap time. So I've got a nice close ghost to chase, so I'm just going to see if I can get around him or beat that ghost on this lap time. And then as you're driving around, don't forget you really need to analyse where the problems are. Still not turning in quite enough on those brakes. I'm going to sort that out now as well. So still brake pressure seems okay. I'm going the wrong way, but it needs to rotate more. So 40% seems an awful lot. I never seem to go that far, but it might be just because of the weight distribution in the car's quite a lot. Often it's like 40, it's 40s. 42 I think it was. A little bit sideways as well going through those S's. I think I might have gone a little bit too far. Let's see what happens on this. So back end's coming out a bit on the brakes. That means it's rotating too much. So It's not that back, but not quite as far. I thought it felt a bit much, so we'll 43. Still needs to turn. I'm really trying to focus at the moment that just when I'm braking, the car's pointing in the direction that I want it to while on the brakes. Does it brake in a straight line when I'm keeping the wheel straight? Does it continue to turn on the brakes when I want it to? If I seem to have both of those bits under control, then the brake balance should be about right. It's feeling easier to adjust even at that. So 43, that's only a 3% difference, but it made an awful lot of difference. Might as well finish this lap off. Okay, can I control it better through here? Yeah, I reckon that was better. Okay, so balance seems alright, we'll just get round to the end. That was just late on the brake, but remember I'm talking about brake balance, not the balance of the whole car. There was definitely still issues on that. Still understeer, sort of mid-corner. Okay, so 210, what? 210.514, I know it wasn't clean, that's where we're at, around 210 at the moment. The car's feeling alright, it's feeling pretty balanced. So, the issue I think is, I think this is going to be a bit awkward because I've got understeer going into corners, but I know when I get onto that accelerator, if I shift too much to oversteer, then I reckon I'm going to get oversteer on corner exit. So there's two things I can do. Let's go back to the calculator and see how we can use this to correct the problem. So if we look at the overall balance, we'll go through the overall balance bit here. This affects everything. If I change the overall balance and shift it towards oversteer, everything will change that will give that impression, or that give that characteristic regarding springs and dampers and anti-roll bars. So if I move this across just one click, you might be able to see everything change. If I just flip this backwards and forwards, you should be able to see the anti-roll bars are changing. At least the rear one is. The front one isn't, because we've said that we want the front one at 30, so that one's not changing. But the front and rear springs, front and rear rebound, front and rear bump are all changing. If you use the anti-roll bar only slider, this one's probably a little bit more sensible. You know, we've got a spring set at a pretty good stiffness that they're not bottoming out. If I start changing the whole overall balance, that's going to adjust spring stiffnesses as well when I'm already at kind of my limit for front and rear. I might not necessarily want to soften the fronts anymore or soften the rears anymore, because if I do, they're going to bottom out. So I might not want to touch them, or I might have plenty of clearance. I could knock the ride height up a couple of clicks, and then maybe have more room to play with the springs. But I don't want to do that. I want to keep the car as low to the ground as possible. So I've got my anti-roll bar only option, which is what I'm going to manipulate now. I need the car to rotate more. Yeah, so it might be tricky to control, but I want more rotation. So I'm going to knock this up a good amount. Let's get it up five clicks there. Now what this might do, this might be a slightly counterproductive way of doing it, because by upping the oversteer, if you notice what's happened, the front anti-roll bar hasn't changed. The rear anti-roll bar has gone stiffer. Now that makes sense. If I'm stiffening the rear anti-roll bar, then I'm going, that will encourage oversteer. So let's go to tune setup. Let's give that a go. Now the reason I was saying it might be counterproductive is because my problem is at the front of the car. I'm getting understeer. I don't really want to start upping the rear anti-roll bar to generate oversteer to fix the front. It might not quite have the effect. I don't really want to muck about with the end of the car that's not got the problem. So in fact, I'm going to stick with that theory. I'm going to change my mind on that. I'm not going to do it. You know what they do now, but my problem is at the front of the car, not at the back of the car. This is changing issues at the back. So if we know that understeer problems are happening at the front of the car, and oversteer problems tend to happen at the rear of the car, then we've got these little bits down here. We know pretty much what everything's doing on the front here. I know I haven't been through damper ratio or anything else, but it should be, the rest of it should be pretty straightforward as follows. Just stick with the simple stuff. I may even do a second video. The problem is at the front. So if we click on the understeer fine tuning page there, you can still see that. Yep, good. Understeer fine tuning. Now this flowchart crops up. Now remember the flowchart from the bottom of the tuning guide. I've incorporated it into the calculator. So initially I don't take complete ownership or responsibility for this flowchart. This was sent to me a couple of years ago. It was similar to this. I've manipulated it and changed it and moved things around, but basically the idea is we've got a corner entry, a mid corner and a corner exit area where we can address understeer, and we can follow this flowchart to determine how to fix the problem. This is where this calculator should hopefully sort of excel over calculators which only provide base tunes. I don't want to say, yeah, this is the best one ever, but it does offer something quite unique that other calculators don't offer. And this is it, the ability to quite literally tune it yourself, tune it to your requirements. I don't like how the car is handling. If I'd have got another calculator and these were my final figures, it just spat these figures out and I didn't like it, I've got to like it or lump it, right? And I'm sure so many people have felt the same things. Sometimes a calculator is fantastic, sometimes it's a load of shit. We need something that is able to give us good results under every scenario. Kane, I have just seen your message pop up if you're still watching, mate, and can you explain the damping ratio slider a little bit more? I certainly will do. I'll come back to it. I'll come back to it, mate. I will go through it. So we know we've got a corner entry understeer. This is a big problem at the moment. So corner entry understeer, we can follow this across. We've got a slider here. So understeer goes to corner entry, and is it happening at high speed? Well, yeah, it is happening at high speed, but it's happening at lower speeds as well. The first thing that it's suggesting you do on high speed is increase front downforce. Well, that's a load of nonsense, isn't it? Because I don't have any front aero installed. Okay, so what? you know, the calculator didn't know that. So we can't do that option. We could reduce the front ride height if possible, but we can't do that either because it's slam. So we're going to just head on over to look at what other things we can do. Now, corner entry issues, mid to low speed. It is happening at mid to low speed as well. We've already said that, so we're quite happy looking at this. The first thing it's suggesting is increase the front toe out. That will have probably huge impacts on whether this car turns in or not. So I'm gonna click it in there. Now, toe can be really sensitive, so I'm just gonna go one click at the moment. I'm going to go across to here, just making sure I'm on the right bit. So front toe, there we go. Right, quickly go back. So I've clicked this increase front toe out. I've clicked it up one click. To see the results for this, I just need to click on main calculations and go back to it. If we go back to it and then we look at the toe options, here it is. Front toe. Now the blue boxes are just what's happening on the main page, but the white boxes will also include adjustments that are made on these two pages as well. So if I look at front toe now, it says I should put that at 0.1. So I've not actually, let's just look at the reality of this. I was able to determine that the car wasn't turning enough as I was going into corners. So I've got corner entry understeer. I click onto the understeer fine tuning page. It comes up with this flow chart. I follow it down. I can see what I'm doing. It suggests to increase the front toe. So I click on that. I go back to the main calculations, and these are the new figures that will cause those effects that I'm looking for to be encouraged. So I'm going to click that up to 0.1. Cool. And then we'll crack on and give it another go. And Kane, yeah, okay, thanks, you're very welcome, mate. No problems. We'll get onto it in a sec. Okay, so there we go. So the front toe has been done. I'll back out of this, go back into the game, and see if that has helped. Well, you might be able to even see that straight away. That is turning in, definitely. Whether it's turning in enough, it might be. My target now is to beat my Ghost. Okay, so it feels like it is turning in a bit more. You might be able to see that when I'm smashing onto that power though, I'm getting understeer again. It's like it's trying to straighten up too much. And personally, I think that's the diff. But I did say I wasn't going to use that. That was much better coming through there. Look at that, already gaining. So much better coming through there. The lines are better. The car's easier to control. I'm probably coming out of here well ahead. Okay, this really is turning in better. The gains I'm making on the previous Ghost are quite decent. Do I go a little bit further? Or is that enough? Remember, this is corner entry understeer we're trying to fix. Don't forget the area of the track that we're focusing on. Or the area of the corner, rather, we're talking about. It's only the corner entry that we're currently looking at. This mid-corner understeer that I'm still getting is not what we're adjusting. still really pulling away. So such a tiny little adjustment as well. It was only 0.1. It might even be worth going up a little bit more. I might just sharpen it up a little. Ghost is overtaking me. I don't actually think it's my corner entry now that's an issue. It's just that mid corner. Now I still might come back to that and make adjustments. It's never a quick process getting a car how you want it. The base tune's fast, but the rest of it isn't. So I'm within a car length, but I'm still getting lots of mid corner understeer. So let's go back to the calculator. You should be able to see where this is going. Let's go back to understeer fine tuning. And now we're getting problems with the middle part of the corner. So there's a few things that it's suggesting. Does the front roll excessively? First of all, answer this question. If it's rolling around all over the place, then the chances are the reason that it's understeering is because you've got too much weight transfer going on. You've got tyres fucking lifting off the ground, maybe in some cases, soft suspension with stiff anti-roll bars. You're leaning over too much, inside wheels coming off the ground. That's not good. But I wouldn't say that this car really feels like it's rolling too much. You can normally just tell what it looks like when you're on the game, specifically if you've got the simulator, what do they call it? The camera motion effects on simulator. Fucking hell, it moves around all over the place. It's too much for me, it makes me feel a bit sick. But you can have a look on there. The other way that you can check to see how much it's how far it's leaning is look at the let's just slow this down a little bit and bring the display up. Here we go. So you can see on the body acceleration where the G-force is. So if it's if the car's leaning a lot, or there's a lot of weight transfer happening, then the line or the circle moves further away. But another good way to check the lean would be to go back to the suspension. You could maybe just see is there a lot of compression happening on the left or right hand sides compared to the other. So there's a couple of ways you can look at it. Either way, you've been looking at the other screen. Sorry, doesn't matter. So either way, we're looking at softening something at the front by the looks of things. It doesn't roll too much, so we've got a couple of options. Soften the front anti-roll bar. Yeah, we can do that. Let's knock it down a couple of clicks though. I'm going to do it quite a lot. Let's just go straight for 5. Let's just make this a really noticeable change. This maxes out at 10, so 5 is actually quite a lot. But there's a lot of mid-corner understeer going on. Other options: reduce front shock stiffness, overall shock stiffness, increase rear damping ratios, soften the front spring rate, or increase negative camber. We'll get to camber in a second. That's not something we've touched on just yet, but I don't like using the calculator for camber. There's a much better way of doing it. So soften the front anti-roll bars. This is the first thing that it's suggesting. That's the first one we're going to do. So look at that. Front anti-roll bars 30. After fine tune is 15. It's halved it. That's a huge drop. 50%. That's probably too much. Let's just go back to say -3. So 21 is where it's put it at. The other one just felt a little bit too much. I might end up going back to it, but there we go. So we've got 21 at the front. Um, 21.72 at the rear. 6.9 is probably close enough. And they are now in the game. 21.04, 21.69. Nothing else has changed. We've only adjusted the understeer, soften the front anti-wheel bars as suggested. So let's give this another go. Hopefully, let's just turn that off. Hopefully this will now just cure a lot of that mid-corner understeer that we're getting. This helps. It can probably do with a lot more. Excuse me. Still feeling like I'm getting a lot. Let's go all the way. What was it? 15. I think it was 15. Yep. Okay, so 15 is on there. That is just so much better. It's just flying around those corners. Look at the difference. Although saying that, I think that that Ghost is not my fastest Ghost. That's my previous lap where I slowed right down. Why does it do that? Why doesn't it just keep the fastest one? Six tenths up still though. I know I went a little bit wide there. That was pretty awful. But it's definitely becoming easy to control. I still think it needs more, you know. It's helping. It's helping. I'm gonna go more. You know when you're going in the right direction when stuff like this is happening and taking over. Right, so back to the calculator. Understeer, fine tuning. I want even more. In fact, let me just see. Is this leaning too much? Is it going to cause it to lean too much? I think what we'll do, we'll also reduce the stiffness of the front shocks. We're going to add this as well. I don't want the car to lean over too much at the front and not at the rear. The trouble with that is if you've got too much of a difference on the front and rear, you might find that if the front rolls and the rear doesn't, by the front rolling over, it will pull the rear wheel off the ground. Like the inside rear wheel will be literally pulled off the ground by the strength of the chassis. It doesn't like to twist too much. So it will literally just lift the rear inside wheel off the ground. So maybe we don't want it too much. Although saying that, I've seen plenty of setups in Forza with a front stiffness of 1 and a rear stiffness of 40 and vice versa. So we're obviously not dealing with an actual simulator here. Decisions. Let's do something different. Let's just knock the front shock stiffness down by 3 clicks. Let's see what happens with that. So 6.9 and 3.8. I got confused myself there. That's dropped to 6.9. That's dropped to 3.8. That might, yeah, okay. So let's try that. You still looking at the same thing I'm looking at? Yeah, good. Right, so we're going to adjust the dampers instead. We're going to go down 6.9. I've explained why I don't want too much of the car rolling over on the front, and this is 3.8. Now this won't adjust how far the springs move, but it will slow the weight transfer down a bit. It will give, by slowing the weight transfer down a bit, gives the tyres a little bit more time to react to the change and like absorb that that sort of twist in the chassis and. Yeah, increases grip basically. Right, so you can see that straight away. That front is just, the grip is really noticeable. Right, now one thing I'm noticing, as the front, you might be noticing this as well, as the front becomes, as the front begins to develop more grip as it's going around corners, which is really helping with how easy the car is to drive and certainly on the overall handle. What's happening is the back of the car is getting a little bit loose. So we try not to affect the back of the car by only focusing on the front, but it has kind of caused that effect. I'm still getting understeer there. We need more. I'm gonna go more. Right. Let's have a look. Oversteer, fine tuning. Let's soften the front end roll bar a little bit more and knock the shock stiffness down. Let's just go to town on this thing. Anti-roll bar is now down to 9. And rebound. Front is down to 6.1. Bump is down to 2.7. Okay, just flip that across so you can see it. So front was down to 6.1, rear was down to 2.7. I appreciate that I keep forgetting to swap the cameras over, sorry guys. And what was the other one? And I was down to 9 on there, that was it. 9.04 was as close as I could get. Okay, right, so we want more of this. Okay, so we're definitely inducing problems elsewhere. The front is working for us, but it's causing the back to slide out. So I either need to adjust my driving style to try and keep that under control, and if I can't do it, then I need to retune the back of the car. Okay, so back end still sliding a bit, or well, a bit too much though. Wide again. Okay, so this oversteer needs to be dealt with. I think we're getting someone with the front. This is quite typical when you're tuning the car. You fix one problem and up pops another one. This oversteer that I'm getting is definitely only on corner exit though. Is making for some pretty interesting handling, so let's deal with that as well. Corner exit problems we've come across. So over to the calculator. This probably isn't going to surprise you. We go to the oversteer fine tuning page, and it's happening on corner exit. So oversteer, corner exit over on the right hand side. First thing, increase rear toe in. Okay, let's increase rear toe in. Let's give that a click. And go back to the main calculations, and increase rear toe in has made an adjustment on there. So we go to tune setup, stick in the alignment change, -0.1, hit OK. Let me just show you that I've done that. There we go, so -0.1, and then the other adjustment from earlier. Is that going to be enough to stabilise the rear during the corner exit? Ooh. Bad gear change there. This mouse is getting in my way. Just going to put it on the floor. Okay, good. Well, less of the back sliding coming out of that corner. I'm not too worried about catching this. This goes to the motor. I just want to check where, if I get on the power coming out the corner, is the back staying a little bit tighter than it was. And yes, I believe it is. what are we going for? Lap times 2:10.174. So I need to do a 2:09 really. Look at that, 2.3 seconds slower. Damage 56%. What the hell is that? There we go. That's that sorted. Pit stop done. Okay, this is just feeling fantastic. It says it was feeling fantastic. Halfway around the corner, the back end kicks out. So mid-corner oversteer. We had mid-corner understeer before. Now hopefully if I change the settings on the mid-corner oversteer, the understeer won't be affected too much. The trouble is, there's every possibility that it will be. But it depends what's going on with the car. It might just have been me. Bad throttle control. Fuel, fuck's sake. Assists. Cosmetic. That should fill the fuel tank back up. And then go back to fuel and tyres. We've got a full fuel tank in here. Right, that's safe doing a pit stop. This is definitely becoming a lot easier to control. I hope you can actually appreciate this. Oh, wrong gear there. But look, last lap, look at that on the left hand side, I'm too busy focusing on it. Do you see it was like 2:09.0 something, so it's like a second off just when you start to concentrate. Excuse me. Okay, right, so I feel that the car is starting to really get somewhere. Hopefully you can see that as well. But there's another issue which the calculator doesn't deal with, and that is camber. Camber adjustments are going to be covered in 5 minutes, because I'm just going to quickly take a leak and top this drink up. 2 seconds, stay tuned for camber. 5 minutes, guys. so while I was out there, I did remember, by the way, I know I still need to talk about damping ratio. Which do I do first? Okay, right. I'll quickly cover what damping ratio is, just so you get it. The default option on the calculator, 67%. This is a pretty good default option. The reason it's at 67% or 66.666, so 2/3 is roughly is why it's there. When you're doing when you're tuning, if you look at the damping, let me just grab a controller. Does it say anywhere? No. Okay, it doesn't seem to say too much, but okay. Basically, bump stiffness. Bump is how quickly the suspension absorbs bumps. So if you were to hit a curb or something, the impact that the suspension receives as the curb hits the bottom of the tyre, pushing, like compressing the suspension. And rebound is how much how quickly the suspension is almost like pushed or allowed to be pushed back to a steady state by the spring. If you like, the spring's pressing the wheel back out after it's hit a bump. The rebound controls how quickly it's pushed back out. The wheel's pushed back down onto the track surface. It's normally suggested that bump stiffness should be around about 2/3 of rebound stiffness. That's been a thing for like years. So that's what this is. The damping ratio is the like how much rebound there is in comparison to bump. So 67%, I rarely change it. It's quite good where it is, to be honest. But if I just knock this down and go to like 50%, just because 50 is a nice easy number, then we can see here that 4.5 and 9.1, two 4.5s is 9, yeah, so that's why that's at 50%. Two 6.3s is 12.6, yeah, so give or take decimals, that's the only reason they're slightly different. So that's what that is. 67% is fine, 66, 67%, the default is fine, but it's how much bump you've got in comparison to rebound. Excuse me. Why would you even want to adjust that? Well, sometimes you might be on a really bumpy surface and you might be, you might be absorbing bumps. You might want to absorb the bump quite gently and force that spring back down, or that tyre back down onto the track surface. Or if you've got it set the other way around, the car might hit a bump and just literally bounce clean off of it. And then the wheel takes ages to come back down onto the ground. That would obviously be a pretty bad setup, but that's all that is. Your bump stiffness is never higher than your rebound stiffness. Although on a game like this, it wouldn't surprise me if at some point that was of an advantage. But generally speaking, bump stiffness is always about 2/3 of your rebound stiffness. That's what that does. Okay, right, so I digress. We're going to go back and talk about camber. Now, the camber option, there's nothing on the calculator that can really determine what your camber angle should be. The defaults come out at, as you've already seen, -2 and 1.6. This will be the same for every single car you tune with this calculator, so there's no point saying to me, "Oh, Dave, your calculator's fucked." It's like this is always the case. This is just a ballpark default amount that I feel gives generally there or thereabouts some good settings based on the other default settings on the calculator. you start increasing spring stiffnesses, the spring's not going to move so far up into the arches. If it doesn't move as far, the wheel's not going to go through as much of a camber change. So your camber settings are going to need to be altered. The caster could have an effect on the camber angles that you use. The ride height could affect it. The track itself, is it flat or not? There's so many things that could influence camber angles that we need to try and just appreciate. They're just default numbers. They're never going to change. It's up to you to put them correct, and this is how you're going to do it. So we are going to let's just slow this down a little bit. So we're looking for the heat page. This is the one here on your telemetry. Now what we want is an even heat distribution on the outside tyre at corner exit. So when you're turning right like we are at the moment, you're keeping an eye on the left-hand tyres. We're turning right up here again, keep an eye on those left-hand tyres. You want the temperature distribution across those to be even at the point of corner exit. Completely even, or as freaking close as damn it as you can get. Now it's going to be tricky to judge that on a lot of corners, and some corners are going to be quicker than others, and so on. You can't get this setting right for every corner, so it's worth paying attention to important corners or fast corners, because they're the ones that matter. This one, for example, this is quite an important corner. It's worth getting that. It's worth getting that set up correctly. This one down here is a much slower corner and probably won't benefit as much from a correctly adjusted camber. The camber's going to be different going through that corner than it is this one because of the speed of the car, the amount of weight transfer. But every time I'm going around these corners, just keep an eye on it, especially these right-handers. Watch the temperature in the top right-hand corner. Oh shit, you can't see it. Okay, right. I'm gonna just back out of this. I'm glad I looked down and spotted it. I'm gonna move me to underneath this bit here. Let's just move me across and down here. Okay, right, let's go back to this. You see it now? Okay, good. Right, so is that really me? Okay, so the front left. Now you can see it. When we're going around right-hand corners, I'm noticing that the outer is it going to happen on this one as well? No, so is it inside on that? Oh no. Okay, right, so on the outer edges of the tyre on those corners was getting hotter than the inside edges. That's what I'm trying to say. I'll get there in a minute. I can't seem to drive out and talk. Right, pay attention to it on this side. Outside edge gets hotter than the inside as we go around this right hand bit. I thought they were pretty even through there. It's important when testing this that the tyres don't slide. You want to try and keep it as flat as possible. To be fair, they're not when I'm keeping the car flat through the turn, the tyres aren't losing grip. They're actually not too bad. You can see they're much different on the straights. That's to be expected. But going around these bends here, 210.5, 210.4, they're pretty even. That might even be alright. This is what we're aiming for. Even tyre distribution across the width of the tyre on corner exit. They're actually not too bad. I'm quite happy with that. They were within what 0.1 rather of each other coming out of some of those corners. They were a bit different at the moment. It's hard to keep track of it. One way that you could do this as well, which is really nice, you could run a couple of laps, watch the replay back, because then you can slow it right down and just you can concentrate on your racing, on your racing line and your throttle control and all of that, and then watch the replay back and then just have a look at the telemetry and see see how your figures line up. To be fair, they look alright at the minute. So we'll continue. We're 17 laps in. Current best is 210.174. I think if I'm honest, what I'm going to do now, and if you're following along and you're doing the same sort of thing, I think we're at that stage where I need to just try and do
Well, the default front and rear camera on every car, is that just the algorithm or base default point? Cavan's throwing in a bit of help there. Add some more rear camber. Pretty much max the dampening. Works with the Porsches. Tuned up this car with the 2016 GT3 RS and the number 45 Porsche GT3. So we can max that dampening out. Okay, we can give that a go in a second, Cavan. And Kane, hopefully I've just explained why the 2.6, the 2.0 and 1.6 on every car. It is exactly the same, and that's why, because you need to do the camber manually. There's too much going on. Right, I'll bear that in mind, Cavan, on the dampening stiffness. Cheers, mate. I'm going to turn this telemetry off. I'm just going to do a couple of laps just to try and focus on the driving. I've been doing so much talking that I've not really been focusing on the driving. Let's just try and throw in a sub 210 and then see where we can make adjustments. I'll try and analyse the car as I'm driving, but I'm going to do it quietly in my mind. See if you can notice some handling issues just by watching. And if you agree, or if you think, oh yeah, this needs to be changed, I'll gladly agree or disagree. You may even be able to try and follow along with what I'm getting. So, hoping I won't come off the track there. Could do a little bit more turn in still. So my brake balance issues back. Let's do it now. So I feel I need a bit more pressure, but it's just rotating too much. Oh no. I think that was my bad for hitting the curb there. That's a bit frustrating. Although I did get the sub 10 on the previous lap. Still mid-corner, understeer. Whoa! Don't hit that curb. Okay, right, so this is definitely something that I want to sort out. So we've got lots of corner exit oversteer happening and still some corner entry understeer happening. So I'm gonna knock this rear toe in another couple of clicks. I'm also gonna reduce the rear damping a couple of clicks as well, just to soften up the or slow down the weight transfer for the back. And I want to sort out some increased grip at the front. So I'm going to knock this front anti-roll bar all the way down. Does that allow me to do that, or has it gone to zero? It's gone to zero. We'll go back, knock that back up. Just so you can see what I'm doing, sorry. Right, so I've knocked the anti-roll bar all the way down to -9. I've dropped the shocks down to -5, and I increased the rear toe a couple of clicks and decreased the rear damper, the rear bump damping. So there's a few things that I need to adjust here. Let's just make sure that this happens. So the main calculations are on here. This rear rebound, or this rear stiffness being as stiff as it is, could be making a big difference to that oversteer. I don't know. Let's leave it. It's a bit. The oversteer's happening a bit more towards the corner exit, so maybe we'll leave it. We'll come back to that. Let's transfer these figures across. The first one is on here. Rear toe is at -0.3. Everything else is the same. This is all the way down to 3. That's pretty damn low, but we just want to try and get some results here. 654, 903, 4.4, 5.1. Not that they're on there. Here we go. So 6.1, 10.9. Soften that a little bit. 2.7, 7.3. Soften that a little bit as well. Braking balance fine. Might even have to stick a differential in on this to fix that. But let's try this. Apologies. I will learn.
There we go. Okay, I don't know if you've noticed, I'm trying to be really delicate because now I'm experiencing some issues with this oversteer, and it's happening. It's power on oversteer, so it's pretty much a differential issue. It's going to have a big impact. Excuse me, a big impact, I think. I'm getting this car handling nice. The stock diff just isn't doing me any favours. So I'll try and resist installing it for as long as possible. Okay, how are we doing on the time? 1.3 seconds. So still a little bit twitchy. I reckon I could probably stabilise that back end a tiny bit. Okay, 208.5. Okay, wow. Well, to be down into the 208s is nice. I was going for 209 point something just a couple of laps ago, and there's definitely improvements. This like oversteer is starting to now become a thing that I need to deal with. So back we go. Oversteer, corner exit. I'm going to crank that up and crank that down a few clicks there. Let's see if that's enough. Here's my new figures. It was adjusted. Alignment was one of them, wasn't it? So what's that? -0.4 on the alignment, and the other one was the rear bump.
6.5 that's come down to. So I've adjusted it there just so you can see it. Here it goes. 6.5 just here. So I've chucked that in. There it is. Apply. We're definitely getting there. What's the time? So we're just coming up by the looks of things to 2 hours into this. Oh, that's definitely more stable on the power. Yeah, definitely noticeable, another good improvement. Exactly half a second faster. Which will soon vanish when I take corners like that. Right, now the thing that's getting me at the moment, which is the worst part, you might have noticed it, it's been pretty clear, but it's been clear to me because I'm driving it and you can't see my feet. I've got my pedal can turned off. So what's happening, I'm getting a lot of this oversteer when I'm lifting off the throttle. So I think, as nice as this car is feeling, I think it's time to put a differential in there, or a limited slip diff. It's got a differential in it. It's just not adjustable. Of all the places to come off the track. so even that last lap, which was really sloppy, was still a 2:08 something. So this car is clearly getting faster and definitely becoming more easy to manage. But the easier it's becoming to manage, I think, the more I'm pushing it, and that's where the problem lies. So I'm not sure if I want to go too much further with trying to dial out this power on oversteer with toe settings, because it's going to just get it's just going to get a little bit too much. If we go back to the calculator here, toe is currently on -0.4. That's quite a lot for the rear. That is quite a lot. I don't really want to go much on that, and everything else is looking, yeah, it's looking pretty soft. I wonder if the back of the car is bottoming out. I wonder if certain things have happened and that's what's, and it's causing that. Oh God, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Oh shit. So yeah, I wonder if any of the springs adjustments or any adjustments so far are now making the back of the car soft. I was wondering if maybe that was the issue. That's why it's sliding, because it's hitting the maximum. 98.99 at the front. We're pretty close. No, it doesn't look like that. Shit. Too busy looking at the telemetry, this tends to happen. So tyre pressure still look alright. Okay, so I think we're possibly getting close. We've been going for 2 hours, and it's been some pretty decent results. Right, I don't know if you saw them. Inside wheels. Watch this. Watch the inside wheel. For power down on there. See how the inside rear wheel's heating up there? So that's a differential issue. As expected. Now that's happening because the inside wheel hasn't got much grip, because so much the weight goes out onto the outside, and differentials tend to send the torque to the wheel with the least amount of grip, which means the power that we've got or the energy that we're using to accelerate out of the corner is being lost in that inside wheel. So let's just do it. Let's go through differentials. Oh, we might need to install one. Okay, so differentials. If you don't know about diffs, I would recommend having a quick look at the page on the website Have I got this? Are you looking at this? No. There we go. So go back to the website. Go across to the tuning guide, and right at the bottom of here, right down to the very bottom, is a thing on differentials. This is worth a read if you don't know about differentials, because they can be quite tricky to figure out. Short summary down the bottom pretty much covers it. High acceleration settings increase power on oversteer. Low acceleration settings reduce power on oversteer. High deceleration settings increase the power off understeer, and low acceleration settings reduce power off understeer, or lift off understeer would be another way of putting it. So lift off oversteer was something that was happening a lot. I don't know if you noticed, I mentioned it a few times. It was happening in stacks. We've installed a diff. It should now show up, or raise diff. It should now show up as an adjustable option. There we go, 70 and 35. Right, so what we need to think about here is maximising corner exit power. We do that by almost locking the diff. Will increase corner exit speed, if you like, improve acceleration coming out of corners, but it makes it an absolute pig to control, and you end up, especially in high powered cars, you end up with massive amount of oversteer. So we can put a differential in, and it will help control the difference in rotational speeds between inside and outside wheels. See, when I'm coming off the accelerator now, I was pretty much just coasting around. I got my foot off the accelerator. It's already a lot easier to control. I've not even changed the settings so far. This might even be the icing on the cake. The rest of the cars felt good, but it's been difficult to control. Try and give it a little bit too much on cold tyres. We're going to have to try and tune this diff all in one go, so the tyres should be pretty much getting there. .32.5-ish, which is good. The rear tyre was, the rear right was lit then, but the rear left was catching up, so that shows that they're rotating closer.
Okay, so I feel like the car needs to rotate a little bit more when I'm on the power. And maybe a little bit more when I'm off the power. Oh no, Actually, I'm going to settle with just on. I did end up setting a pretty good lap time there, 2:08.617. That's close to being up there with the fastest of the tune so far. And it was only the first flying lap. It wasn't really a fair comparison. Just needs a little bit more rotation, I think, on power on. I'm not noticing it too much on the like the fast corners, but the slower corners, it just doesn't feel like it's quite getting round enough. Could do with a little bit more. Okay, so I'm going to start making adjustments to this now. It's pretty obvious. I want a bit more rotation when I lift off the throttle, and maybe a little bit more rotation when I press onto the throttle as well. So let's just go back to the tuning guide here, just so you can see it. So high acceleration settings, increase power on oversteer. Well, I do want a little bit more rotation, so I'm going to up this to 80% when I'm on the throttle. That will definitely turn it around a little bit more. It will make it harder to control, but it will give me quicker exit speeds, and it will rotate the car more. So two positives there. I also want to increase lift-off oversteer. If we look on the guide here, then that quite clearly is high deceleration settings, increase power off understeer. Low deceleration settings, reduce power off understeer. That's kind of what I want. I want to reduce understeer, I want to increase oversteer as I lift off the throttle, just a little bit. So I need to lower my decel. So I'm going to drop that down to like I don't know, 30. I think I wanted less. Maybe about the same amount of difference. So we've gone down to 80-30. Let's set those. Just quickly go back. You can see that 80 and 30. Yeah, you see that? Yep, 80 and 30. Let's see if that helps. The dark arcs of the differential tuning. Okay, so new target is to get into the 207s. Okay, so I definitely got more power on oversteer coming out of that corner, which is what I asked the differential to do. So now it's down to me to be able to control that, and if I can't, then I lower the setting again. Okay, before I start this lap as well, I've been really ignorant. I just want to make sure that I'm not missing too much. Looking great, nice one Shane, thanks very much. Nothing else since Kevin mentioned anything, so I hope you're still enjoying this and following along. Right, let's do this. So 207 point something. Would be really nice. Still needs a little bit more front end grip. That differential has helped out absolutely stacks. And I didn't even need to do much tuning with it. Very powerful tuning tool. A little bit dodgy going through that corner, he says. Very dodgy going through that corner. A little bit slower in and made all the difference by the time you get out the other side there.
Okay, so there's lots of areas with this now that I'm happy with, but I'm still just. I think it's mid corner. It's mid corner understeer when I've got that power on. Particularly, it just doesn't want to pull through the corners or get round them, like this one for example. I'm either turning a little bit too early and not catching it, or it's just not going around the corner. So I think that's something else that I just need to address. Let's go. Oh, I could have just made an absolute monumental fuck up, because just like everybody else experiences, when you come off of this page, everything buggers off. Now then, fortunately, I can probably turn the clock back and just have a look to see where things were set. What a muppet. I know how you guys feel now. Okay, right, so oh my goodness, come on, screenshot. This is going to be pretty tricky to put back where it was. So is there any way I can do this on here? I really hope so. It was a mid corner. I know which one I wanted to adjust as well. Let's just go on a little bit of a mission here. I know you can hear me frantically clicking away there. Exit. This was on -4, and this was, oh no, that was on 4. This was on -5. Four -5. Everything else is the same. Unbelievable, isn't it? Such a schoolboy error. 3197 4230. Three one nine seven. feeling rather fortunate at the moment that I can actually rewind time. But where on earth is the bit with the understeer? Okay, front, I might even be able to figure this out. Understeer -7. Shit. -5. Do we go to 8? That's on 6. About 9. That's on 3. 21.69. Good. 654, 903. Yeah. And then 6-1. 10, 9, 2, 7, 6, 5. Fuck! I've lost it. I've got everything. You can probably, I think you can probably see. I'm getting my figures pretty much to where they were after I made that stupid mistake of coming off of the page. If you're going to go and check out the tuning guide, definitely open it up in a new window. Do not close your tuning calculator page. That is a massive pain in the ass. I just feel like, looking at this, my the rear damping, that needs to go up a little bit, but that needs to go down a little bit. It's weird. What have I done? Reduce rear bump damping, maybe that needs to go down again. 5.8, 6.5 it's on. And that's on 10.9. Oh my god, I can't believe I've done that. Is there nothing else? Let's just check this out. There definitely wasn't anything else for the rear that I mixed. 6.1, 10.9, 2.7, 6.5. These are the damper settings that I'm reading out, and they match what I've got on there. Ten nine 2.7 6.5 20 67%. And 4 -5 on those bits. Why is that saying 6.1 and then 11.2? This is what's confusing me. 11.2, it was on 10.9. No, my TV's telling me it's going to go on standby. Don't do that. If you watch this back, you can probably have afforded to like skip so much of this. I think the figures should be correct. Do I not do anything else?
Okay, so this is reading 11.2, 2.7, 6.1. So I did something along the lines there that was maybe slightly different. I'm not sure what I've done. So these are my figures anyway. 64, 903, 304, 21.69. Yeah, that's close. 61. Do you know what? I'm going to leave it there. I'm not going to muck about anymore with this one. That was a massive fuck up on my part. Huge apologies. How annoying if you're watching. Right, so it was the mid-corner understeer that was my problem. That's what I really wanted to sort out. So I want to increase my rear damping ratio. This is a really, really, really powerful tool to sort out mid-corner stuff, the rear damping ratio. You'll notice on the understeer fine-tuning chart, we're just going to get cracked back on with this, so sorry about that. Understeer fine-tuning part is there's a rear damping ratio in there. When you go to the oversteer, there's a decrease of the same thing. That's the only occasion where something, in the rear can help fix understeer, according to the flowchart. I'm not saying that's always the case, but just according to the flowchart. And we're going to increase that. I'm going to increase it by a good amount. I just want to try and really get this thing to rotate. So I'm going up 5 clicks there. That might even be a freaking astronomical difference, but let's have a look. So 6 point, can you still see this? Yeah. So the new figures I'm looking at, 6.1, 9.8, 2.7 and 7.6. We'll copy those over into the game. 6.1, 9.8. Remember, what I'm doing here is just trying to get rid of that mid-corner understeer. It's really important. It's the only thing that's like really letting me down at the moment. I feel like it needs a bit more. And 7.6. So by changing the rear damping settings, you'll notice that the rear rebound went down and the rear bump went up. That's brought those two closer to each other, rather than further apart. So they haven't gone up or down collectively or like by the same amount. They've got closer to each other. One's gone down, one's gone up. This is the only thing we want to get rid of at the moment. I feel like I'm pretty much done, but I've dragged this out way too much because of that massive ball ache. Okay, but there we go. Let's get back on it. I mean, that did feel a little bit easier to control for you there, or I might have just been me having a bit of fun. I'm just running a tiny bit wide, maybe just going a bit quick. Oh dear guys, I feel like I've been doing this for a little bit too long now. That muck up just then really threw me. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to give myself another lap just to try and get back into this a little bit more, get my head back. Okay, right, there we go. So I had to shut up and just concentrate, trying to get my head back into it then, so apologies. But look at that, 207.404. So another chunk taken off. I think 207 was the target and went 0.6 into it. There you go. That's quite that's actually quite powerful. That last adjustment. Let's just go back to it. So the one that I made an adjustment to, the understeer one, increased rear damping ratio. It's really good. It seems to provide vast amounts of grip in the corner. If you can't get it and you're powering on and the car won't rotate or it's rotating too much, adjust that one. That's really, really strong. And that pretty much sums up the calculator. I might not have gone and set some global, you know, #1 time or anything like that. The point is that when I first got into the car, it was absolutely abysmal, and I couldn't control it very well at all. I've just gone and set a 207.404, which was what, like 5 seconds quicker than when I first started this session. They were coming in at what, 212, 211, 210, 209, 28. And then 2.7, so a real chunk. I might have exaggerated that, might have not been quite that much, but it's definitely coming down more and more and more. Tuning a car is vital to do yourself. If you can be asked to do it, if you can just be bothered, figure out how the car's handling for you. That's why this calculator works, because I was experiencing problems then that you might not have experienced. You might have experienced other problems, in which case look at different sliders, moving them in different directions, and the calculator will still go and push out those all-important figures that are going to get you the results that you're gunning for. I've been going for a bit now, just coming up to 3 hours with tuning this car. I am going to leave it there, guys. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to come back with another video, because I think it will be really worthwhile. Maybe if I do a few more different kinds of cars and classes of cars. If you've got any cars that you'd like to see tuned, whether it's some shitty E-Class car or right the way up to the top, then I'll give those a go as well. One thing I will say, the calculator is not all that great once you start getting up into the Formula 1 style cars, the open wheel cars, only because the amount of downforce that most of those cars have is so extreme that it masks a lot of what the suspension's doing. They're pretty tricky to get right. The calculator will still work. It's just it's just harder. I've noticed it's much harder to get right. You feel like you're making adjustments you're making a lot of adjustments for minimal change, and then all of a sudden you'll do something that will make vast amounts of difference. They're just awkward. Excuse me. If you're tuning anything up to about R class, SR class, they're pretty good. If you're going above R, P, X, they starts to struggle. But E through S/R, depending on the car, you've pretty much got it covered with this thing. There you go. Any questions or anything at all, please feel free to drop them into the chat or just a message, comment at the bottom of the video. That would be good. Those are the settings that I finished with, which were way off from the original ones, but producing a solid tune. So there you go. That's that. Thanks very much for tuning in. We'll leave it there. I'm going to be doing another stream probably later on today, but it might just be me tearing around the track. If you want to watch, then please do. Keep an eye out. I'll try and set a reminder for the next one, put a cheeky little poster up or something to let you guys know it's happening. That's that. I'm exhausted. I've chatted shit for ages. The main thing with this, I really hope that it's been beneficial. This is what's really important. It has to be beneficial to you. There's no point in doing this if you haven't learned anything. Like I said, I wasn't doing this to say, oh, look how good the calculator is, or look how good at racing I am, because there's been several mistakes. The whole point of this was just, let's find a car that doesn't handle as good as we like, or doesn't handle well for us, and let's turn it into something manageable. That I think we've absolutely achieved. So for me, it's a thumbs up. If you follow along and you like the calculator, give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you've not yet done so already. Comment, all of that sort of stuff. It really helps to it helps me out, build the channel, get people's awareness up. The whole point of doing this, I just want to help people out. So if it does help, then great. Job done. Oh, there you go, guys. Right, I'm going to leave you there. Enjoy mucking around with this calculator. I will come back to it at another point. And that is that is that. Thanks very much, and I will see you guys on the next stream. Until then, take it easy, and I'll see you soon. Cheers, guys. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.